The great hall of the Galactic Council was silent. 200 species watched from their seats as the Vorath ambassador rose to speak. He was tall, covered in dark scales, and his yellow eyes burned with pride. Behind him, a massive screen showed the Vorath war fleet. 4,000 ships. The largest military force in the known galaxy. Humans, the Vorath ambassador said, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have 60 cycles to surrender your colony worlds. Kepler to 7, New Jakarta, and Hope Station. These territories now belong to the Vorath Empire. Refuse, and we will take them. Then we will take Earth. In the human section, Ambassador Beak J stood slowly. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. Around him, delegates from other species whispered to each other. Some laughed quietly. Everyone knew what would happen next. The humans would agree. They had no choice. Earth had joined the Galactic Confederacy 60 years ago. In that time, humanity had been treated as a minor species. Their technology was primitive compared to older civilizations. Their fleet was small. They controlled only 12 worlds, while empires like the Vorath controlled hundreds. Ambassador Beak J looked at the Vorath ambassador. Then he looked at the laughing delegates. His face showed nothing. The answer is no, he said simply. The laughter stopped. The Vorath ambassador's eyes widened. No? The alien's voice was filled with disbelief. You understand what you are saying? We have 4,000 warships. You have 200. This is not a negotiation. This is mercy. Accept our terms, or your species will be erased from history. Ambassador Beak J did not look away. The people of Earth do not surrender their children. Not to you. Not to anyone. If you want our worlds, come and take them. The great hall exploded with noise. Species that had remained silent for centuries began talking at once. The Vorath ambassador slammed his fist on his podium. Then you have chosen death. He roared. The Vorath armada will depart in 10 cycles. When we are finished, there will be nothing left of humanity but ashes and memory. He stormed out of the chamber. His guards followed. The massive doors slammed shut behind them. In the chaos that followed. No one noticed the small smile on Ambassador Beak J's face. 3 days later, the Vorath High Commander broadcast a message to every corner of the galaxy. His name was Vorn, and he was the most feared military leader of his generation. He had conquered 32 worlds. His tactics were brutal and effective. Citizens of the galaxy, Vorn announced, watch closely. You are about to witness the extinction of a species. Humans are prey animals. They are soft. They are weak. They have no claws, no armor, no venom. They will kneel before us within 1 cycle. And any species that offers them aid will share their fate. The message was seen by trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Most agreed with Vorn. Humanity was young and foolish. They had made a terrible mistake, but in a bunker beneath the city of Sol on Earth, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Admiral Park Teho stood before a room full of military commanders. He was 58 years old, with a weathered face and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind him, screens showed tactical data, fleet positions, and something marked Project Monsoon Top Secret. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Park said quietly, the enemy believes we are afraid. They believe we will scatter and hide. They believe our declaration of war was the desperate act of a dying species. He paused. Let them believe it. Captain Kim Yuna sat in the front row. She was young for her rank, only 34, but she had earned her position through skill and courage. She commanded the battleship Inshin, one of the newest ships in the fleet. Admiral, she said, our ships are outnumbered 20 to 1. How do we win this war? Admiral Park smiled. It was not a kind smile. Captain, humans have been fighting wars since before we learned to write. We have spent 10,000 years killing each other in every way imaginable. We have perfected the art of ambush, deception, and total destruction. He pressed a button, and the screens changed. The Vorath think they understand war. They do not. They have conquered weak species who surrendered at the first sign of force. They have never fought someone who fights back. The screens now showed detailed plans, fleet movements, hidden weapons, secret bases built in asteroid fields and nebula clouds. 40 years of preparation. This is Project Monsoon, Admiral Park continued. For 4 decades, Earth has been preparing for this day. We knew that eventually, someone would try to take what is ours. We let the galaxy believe we were weak. We let them laugh at our small fleet. But behind that fleet, we built something else. Something they will never see coming. General Cho Sang-woo, commander of Earth's ground forces, leaned forward. When do we begin? Immediately. The Vorath fleet will travel through the Helion corridor to reach Earth. It is the fastest route, and they are too arrogant to consider alternatives. That corridor will become their grave. For the next hour, Admiral Park explained the plan. Every detail had been considered. Every possibility had been planned for. When he finished, the room was silent. Captain Kim Yuna felt her heart pounding. It was insane. It was brilliant. It might actually work. That night, Earth's declaration of war was broadcast across all galactic channels. President Na Ki-Tae, the leader of humanity, spoke directly to the Vorath Empire. You have threatened our people. You have demanded our surrender. You have promised our destruction. We do not accept your terms. We do not fear your fleet. We do not beg for mercy. From this moment forward, a state of war exists between Earth and the Vorath Empire. May history remember what happens next. Across the galaxy, species watched the broadcast with pity. Some shook their heads. Others began planning how to divide humanity's territory after their inevitable defeat. On the bridge of her ship, Captain Kim Yuna watched the stars through the viewport. Somewhere out there, 4,000 enemy warships were preparing to destroy everything she loved. Her hands were steady. Her mind was clear. Admiral Park's voice came through on a secure channel. All ships, begin Phase 1. Scatter pattern Delta. Make them think we are running. The human fleet split apart, each ship heading in a different direction, disappearing into the darkness of space. And somewhere in that darkness, Admiral Park Tae-ho sat in his command chair aboard the hidden flagship, Dokdo. He looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy armada. Let them believe we are prey, he whispered to himself. Prey do not set traps. The galaxy watched and waited for humanity to die. They did not understand that they were watching something else entirely. They were watching humanity prepare for war. Real war. The kind of war that humans had been waging against each other since the dawn of time. And nobody wages war like humans. The Helion corridor stretched across 4 light years of empty space. It was a natural pathway between the outer territories and the inner worlds of the galaxy. Ancient nebula clouds hung on either side like walls of purple and gold dust. Asteroid fields drifted silently in the darkness. It was beautiful. It was deadly. And it was exactly where Admiral Park Tae-ho wanted the enemy to go. Commander Shin Dong-soo had not slept in 3 days. He stood on the bridge of the stealth frigate Shadow of Bizan, watching his crew work in silence. Around him, 79 other stealth ships held position in the nebula clouds. They were completely invisible to sensors. The Vorath would fly right past them without knowing death was watching. Commander, his tactical officer reported, ghost mines are in position. 12,000 units spread across the corridor. Shin Dong-su nodded. The ghost mines were humanity's secret weapon. They looked like ordinary space debris. They gave off no energy signature. They would float harmlessly until they received a specific signal. Then they would wake up. Then they would kill. Good. Maintain radio silence. We wait. 200,000 kilometers away, hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, Lieutenant Han Yunbai worked at her computer terminal. She was young, barely 26, but she was the best encryption specialist in the fleet. For the past week, she had been listening to Vorith communications, breaking their codes, learning their secrets. What she heard made her smile. Admiral Park, she transmitted through a secure quantum link. I have their fleet communications. They believe we scattered in fear. Their scouts report our ships fleeing in all directions. They are laughing at us. Admiral Park's voice came back calm and steady. Good. Let them laugh. What is their formation? Standard attack pattern. All ships grouped together for maximum firepower. No scouts ahead. No flanking protection. They expect no resistance. Arrogant. Predictable. Perfect. Continue monitoring. Report any changes. Yes, Admiral. On the planet Nexer 4, home to the Galactic News Network, journalist Yoon Mi-ra prepared her broadcast. She was one of the few human journalists working in alien space, and right now, every network in the galaxy wanted her analysis. This is Yoon Mi-ra. Reporting from Nexer 4, she said into the camera. The Vorith Armada has departed. 3,200 warships are now heading toward Earth through the Helion corridor. Military experts across the galaxy predict the conflict will be over within days. The human fleet, numbering only 200 ships, has apparently scattered. Some analysts believe this is a sign of internal collapse. Others suggest the humans are attempting to flee to neutral territory. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But I want to remind our viewers of something. I am human. I know my people. And humans do not run. They never have. Something is happening that we do not understand. I advise everyone to watch closely. This war may not end the way anyone expects. Her producer, a four-armed alien named Toke, shook his head after the broadcast. You are too emotional about this, Mi-ra. Your species is about to be destroyed. I am sorry, but facts are facts. Yoon Mi-ra said nothing. She just smiled the same small smile that Ambassador Beak J had smiled in the council chamber, deep in the Helion corridor. Captain Kim Yuna waited with her assault group. 50 ships hidden behind a massive asteroid, engines cold, running on minimal power. Her crew sat at their stations, quiet and focused. Captain, her first officer said softly, the crew is getting anxious. We have been hiding here for 5 days. Kim Yuna understood. Waiting was always the hardest part of war. She pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. I know you are tired. I know you are afraid. So am I, but I want you to remember something. Out there, an enemy is coming to destroy our homes. They want to burn our cities. They want to enslave our families. They believe we are weak. They believe we will break. They are wrong. She stood straighter, her voice growing stronger. We are the descendants of warriors. Our ancestors fought with spears and arrows. They fought with rifles and tanks. They fought against empires, against tyrants, against impossible odds. And they won. Because humans do not surrender. Humans do not give up. Humans fight until the last breath, the last bullet, the last ship. And today, we will show this galaxy what humanity is truly capable of. All stations, prepare for combat. The enemy arrives in 6 hours. A cheer went through the ship. Hands that had been shaking became steady. Fear turned into determination. They were ready. In the flagship Dokdo, Admiral Park Tae-ho reviewed the final battle plans with his senior officers. General Cho Sang-woo was there via hologram, commanding the Marine boarding parties that would be needed after the battle. "Remember," Admiral Park said, "the Vorith have never lost a major battle. They do not know how to react to defeat. When the trap closes, they will panic. They will try to break formation. That is when we destroy them." Pilot Officer Lee Hana, commander of the fighter squadrons, raised her hand. "Admiral, my pilots are ready. 2,000 fighters. But we are facing warships with heavy armor. Our weapons may not be enough." Admiral Park nodded. "You will not attack the armor. You will attack their engines, their sensors, their communication arrays. Blind them. Cripple them. Let our capital ships finish them off. You are not the hammer, Officer Lee. You are the knife that cuts their tendons." Lee Hana smiled. She liked that image. "Understood, Admiral." 6 hours later, the Vorith Armada entered the Helian corridor. From the command ship Pride of Vorith, High Commander Vorn watched the empty space ahead with contempt. Sensors showed nothing. No enemy ships. No resistance. Just the fading trails of fleeing human vessels. "Pathetic," he growled. "They scatter like frightened animals. I expected more from these humans." His second-in-command, a scarred veteran named Throck, nodded in agreement. "They talk bravely, but when faced with true power, they crumble like all the others. We will reach Earth in 4 cycles. Their planet will burn by the end of the week." Vorn laughed. "Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him the human campaign proceeds ahead of schedule. Their fleet is broken. Their spirit is crushed. Victory is assured." The message was sent. Across the galaxy, news networks reported that the war was already over. Humanity had failed before the first shot was fired. But in the shadows of the Helian corridor, 80 stealth frigates powered up their weapons in complete silence. 12,000 ghost mines waited for the signal. 50 assault ships prepared to emerge from hiding. And 2,000 fighters checked their systems one final time. Captain Kim Yuna watched the enemy fleet on her sensors. 3,200 ships, flying in perfect formation, singing their victory songs. They had no idea what was waiting for them. She opened a channel to Admiral Park. "Admiral, the enemy is in the kill zone." Admiral Park's response was calm, almost gentle. "All units, this is Fleet Command. Monsoon begins. I repeat, monsoon begins. May God have mercy on them, because we will not." Kim Yuna closed the channel and looked at her crew. Her voice was steady. "All stations, battle positions. Weapons free." She paused, watching the enemy approach. "Welcome to our home." And then the corridor exploded into fire. The first explosion came from behind the Vorith fleet. Then the second. Then 100 more. The ghost mines awoke from their sleep and tore through the rear guard like claws through paper. Ships that had been singing victory songs suddenly became burning wreckage. On the Pride of Vorith, High Commander Vorn grabbed his command chair as the deck shook beneath him. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted damage reports. On the main screen, the rear of his beautiful armada was disappearing in flames. "What is happening?" Vorn roared. "Where did those weapons come from?" "Unknown, Commander." Throck shouted back. "Mines, thousands of them. They were invisible to our sensors. We have lost 200 ships in the first wave." Before Vorn could respond, the corridor walls came alive. The nebula clouds that had seemed so peaceful suddenly erupted with weapons fire. 80 human stealth frigates decloaked at once, launching hundreds of torpedoes into the Vorith flanks. Commander Shin Dong-su watched from the shadow of Bizen as his torpedoes struck home. All ships fire at will. Target their engine sections. Do not let them escape. The Vorath fleet tried to turn, tried to face this new threat. But they were packed too tightly together. Ships crashed into each other. Weapons fire meant for the humans struck friendly vessels. The perfect formation became chaos in seconds, and then Captain Kim Yuna arrived. The assault group emerged from behind the asteroid field directly ahead of the Vorath fleet. 50 human battleships, their weapons already charged, their crews ready for blood. The Vorath were now trapped between 3 attacking forces, with the minefield blocking their retreat. "This is Captain Kim Yuna to all assault units," she announced over the battle channel. "The enemy is confused and afraid. Now we teach them what fear really means. All ships, attack pattern Monsoon 7. Show no mercy." The Inchin led the charge. Her main cannons fired directly into the lead Vorath command ship, punching through shields that had never been tested in real combat. The alien vessel broke apart, spilling fire and debris into space. High. Commander Vorn stared at his tactical display in disbelief. It was wrong. It had to be wrong. 3 hours ago, he had commanded 3,200 warships. Now, that number was dropping by the minute. 2,900. 2,700. 2,400. How is this possible? He whispered. They had only 200 ships. Throck looked at him with fear in his eyes. "Commander, their tactics are unlike anything we have seen. They are not fighting like a fleet. They are fighting like hunters. They are hurting us." He was right. The human ships were not trying to destroy the entire Vorath fleet at once. They were pushing them, forcing them into tighter and tighter groups, making them easier targets. It was the same way ancient humans had hunted animals on Earth. Surround them. Panic them. Kill them. Above the main battle, Pilot Officer Lee Hanna led her fighter squadrons through the chaos. 2,000 small craft, each one carrying specialized weapons designed to disable rather than destroy. All pilots, target their sensor arrays and communication dishes. Make them blind and deaf. They cannot fight what they cannot see. Her squadron dove toward a Vorath cruiser, dodging defensive fire with movements that seemed impossible. Human pilots trained differently than other species. They pushed themselves to the edge of consciousness, accepting levels of gravitational stress that would kill most aliens. It made them faster, more unpredictable. Deadly. Hanna fired her missiles directly into the cruiser's bridge section. The windows exploded outward. The ship began to drift, its crew dead, its systems failing. "Scratch 1, cruiser," she announced calmly. Moving to next target. In the asteroid base, Lieutenant Han Yunbai worked frantically at her console. She was not firing weapons. She was fighting a different kind of war. "Admiral Park," she reported. "I have accessed their communication network. I am ejecting false orders now." On a dozen Vorath ships, captains received commands that seemed to come from High Commander Vorn himself. "Retreat immediately. Attack your neighbor. Surrender to the humans." The orders were lies, of course. But in the chaos of battle, the Vorath captains had no way to know that. Some obeyed. Some attacked each other. The confusion spread like a disease. Admiral Park Tae-ho watched the battle from the Dokdo with quiet satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The Vorath were doing exactly what he had expected. They were panicking. They were dying. "Signal the Marine boarding parties," he ordered. "Tell General Cho to prepare his teams. We will want prisoners for intelligence purposes." General Cho Sang-woo acknowledged the order. His Marines were already loading into boarding craft, ready to capture disabled enemy vessels. They were not gentle people. They had trained for years for exactly this kind of operation. Back on the Pride of Vorath, Vorn finally understood the truth. This was not a battle. This was an execution. The humans had planned this for decades. Every movement, every tactic, every weapon had been designed specifically to destroy his fleet in this corridor. All ships. He broadcast desperately. Break formation. Scatter. Every vessel for itself. Retreat. But there was nowhere to retreat to. The minefield blocked the way back. The stealth frigates blocked the flanks. Kim Yuna's assault group blocked the way forward. And above, the human fighters picked off any ship that tried to break away. Captain Kim Yuna heard Vorn's desperate order and smiled grimly. They are running. Good. Running targets are easy targets. All ships pursue and destroy. Leave none of them able to fight again. The Inchin surged forward, her engines burning at maximum power. Around her, the other human ships followed. They were not just soldiers now. They were predators chasing wounded prey. Vorn watched his fleet die around him. 1,900 ships left. 1,500. 1,000. The numbers fell faster than he could count. His officers were screaming. Some were praying to gods he did not know. Others simply sat in silence, waiting for death. How? Vorn whispered again. How did they do this? Throck had no answer. He was dead, killed by a piece of shrapnel when the bridge shields had finally failed. The battle lasted 4 more hours. By the end, the Helian corridor was filled with the wreckage of what had once been the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Fires burned in the vacuum, where atmosphere leaked from broken ships. Bodies floated among the debris. Vorath soldiers who had expected easy victory and found only death. Of the 3,200 Vorath warships, only 340 survived. Most of those were too damaged to fight. Their weapons were destroyed. Their engines were crippled. They drifted helplessly, waiting for the humans to decide their fate. Earth's losses were 31 ships. Admiral Park Tae-ho looked at the final numbers and allowed himself a small moment of pride. Then he pushed it aside. The battle was won. But the war was not over. Open a channel to the surviving Vorath vessels, he ordered. Tell them that if they surrender unconditionally, they will be treated as prisoners of war. If they resist, they will be destroyed. They have 10 minutes to decide. 9 minutes later, the surviving Vorath ships lowered their weapons and raised white flags. High Commander Vorn was among the survivors. He was captured by General Cho's Marines and brought before Admiral Park in chains. The two commanders faced each other on the bridge of the Dokdo. Vorn looked broken. His scales were cracked. His yellow eyes were empty. How? He asked one final time. How did you defeat us? Admiral Park Tae-ho studied the alien who had threatened to destroy humanity. When he spoke, his voice was calm but cold. You studied our technology. You counted our ships. You measured our resources. But you never studied our history. You never learned what humans are willing to do when our homes are threatened. Now you know. Now the entire galaxy knows. He turned away from the defeated commander. Take him to the holding cells. We have much more work to do. The Helian massacre, as it would be known forever after, was over. But across the galaxy, the real shockwaves were just beginning. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. On 1,000 worlds, trillions of beings watched in stunned silence as the reports came in. The Vorath Armada, the most powerful military force in known space, had been destroyed. Not weakened, not pushed back, destroyed. And the species that had done it was humanity. The primitive newcomers that everyone had dismissed as irrelevant. Journalist Yoon Mai-ra was the first to broadcast footage from the battlefield. She had obtained recordings from human ships, showing the battle from multiple angles. The images were terrifying. the beautiful Vorath formation crumbling into chaos. Thousands of ships burning. The calm, methodical advance of human vessels as they picked apart an enemy 16 times their size. "What you are seeing is real," Yunmira reported, her voice steady despite the horror on the screen behind her. "The Helian corridor has become a graveyard. Of 3,200 Vorath ships, only 340 survived. Earth lost 31 ships. I repeat, 31 ships. This was not a battle. This was an execution." On Nexer 4, her producer Toke watched with his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. His face showed an expression that Yunmira had never seen on an alien before. Pure, absolute fear. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I said your species would be destroyed. I was wrong. I did not understand what humans are." Yunmira looked at her colleague with sad eyes. "No one understands what humans are. That is why we are still alive." In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Beak J stood before the assembled delegates. The same delegates who had laughed at him 2 weeks ago now sat in terrified silence. Their eyes followed his every movement. Some could not even look at him. "Distinguished representatives," Beak J began calmly, "as you have no doubt heard, the Vorath Armada has been defeated. High Commander Vorn is our prisoner. The Vorath Empire no longer has the military capacity to threaten anyone." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Earth did not seek this war. We asked only to be left in peace. The Vorath chose to threaten our homes, our families, our children. They chose to believe that we were weak because we are young. They were mistaken. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Not a single delegate moved. We are not a violent species by nature," Beak J continued. "We prefer trade to conquest. We prefer diplomacy to war. But when we are forced to fight, we do not fight halfway. We do not stop until the threat is eliminated. The Vorath learned this lesson at a terrible cost. I hope that no other species will need to learn the same lesson." He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who quickly looked away. "Earth has no territorial ambitions beyond our current borders. We have no desire to conquer or enslave. But let this message be clear to every power in this galaxy. Attack humanity, and we will respond with everything we have. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will only be destruction. This war is not over. It will end when we decide it ends. And right now, we have not decided." He bowed slightly and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the council erupted into panicked discussion. On the Vorath homeworld, the Emperor watched the news in his private chambers. His advisors stood around him, none daring to speak. The Emperor was old, ancient even by Vorath standards, but his mind was still sharp. He understood immediately what had happened. "We are finished," he said simply. "The humans will come for us now, and we have nothing left to stop them." One of his advisors stepped forward nervously. "Perhaps we could negotiate? Offer them territory? Resources? Slaves?" The Emperor laughed bitterly. "You still do not understand, do you? The humans do not want territory. They do not want resources. They want vengeance. They want to make an example of us so that no one will ever threaten them again. And they have earned that right." He stood slowly from his throne. "Prepare a message for their admiral. We will ask for terms of surrender. Total, unconditional surrender. It is the only option that might allow our species to survive." Across the galaxy, other powers were having similar discussions. In the Kreth Dominion, military planners quietly canceled their planned expansion toward human space. The Fowler Collective recalled their ambassadors from Earth, afraid that any perceived insult might trigger human aggression. The Mox Trading Federation immediately offered favorable trade agreements to humanity. hoping to buy friendship before it was too late. Species that had ignored humanity for 60 years suddenly became very interested in understanding them. Military academies began studying human history. What they found made them even more afraid. Humans had been fighting each other for 10,000 years. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had perfected tactics for every type of warfare imaginable. And most terrifying of all, they had done all of this before they ever left their planet. The violence that had been directed inward was now available to be directed outward. On the bridge of the flagship Dokdo, Admiral Park Tae-ho received the Voroth Emperor's surrender request. He read it carefully, then handed it to Captain Kim Yuna. "What do you think?" he asked. Kim Yuna read the message and frowned. "They want mercy. After threatening to burn Earth and enslave our people, they want mercy. Yes. Do they deserve it?" Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "I have spent my entire life preparing for war. I have studied every conflict in human history, and I have learned one thing. Victory without mercy creates only more enemies. We have won this battle. We have proven our strength. Now we must prove something else. We must prove that we are more than just warriors. We are builders. We are protectors. We are human." He took back the message and began writing a response. "We will accept their surrender. We will occupy their military facilities. We will dismantle their war machine. But we will not slaughter their civilians. We will not enslave their people. We will give them the chance to become something better than what they were." Kim Yuna nodded slowly. "And if they refuse? If they continue to fight?" Admiral Park's eyes hardened. "Then we will destroy them completely. Mercy is a gift. It can only be given once." The human fleet began moving toward Voroth space. 300 fresh ships joined the surviving forces from the Helian battle. The combined armada advanced steadily, inexorably, toward the heart of the enemy empire. Lieutenant Han Yung-bai continued monitoring Voroth communications. What she heard now was very different from before. No more arrogant boasts, no more victory songs. Only fear, desperation, prayers. "Admiral," she reported, "the Voroth civilian population is in panic. They believe we are coming to exterminate them." Admiral Park nodded. "When we arrive, we will show them otherwise. Prepare a broadcast to be transmitted on all Voroth frequencies. I want every civilian to hear our terms. I want them to know that surrender means survival." General Cho Sang-woo's Marines prepared for a different kind of operation. Not assault and destruction, but occupation and stabilization. They trained in crowd control, in providing humanitarian aid, in working with alien populations. It was not the kind of war they had expected, but it was the kind of war they needed to fight. On Earth, President Nakai-te addressed the planet. His speech was broadcast to every human colony, every ship, every station. "Citizens of Earth, we have won a great victory. Our military has proven that humanity will never be conquered. But now comes the harder task. We must prove that we can win the peace as well as the war. We must show the galaxy that human strength includes compassion, justice, and hope. We fight not to destroy, but to protect. We conquer not to enslave, but to liberate. We are humanity, and we are only beginning to show the galaxy what that means." The fleet moved on. The Voroth worlds waited in terror. And across the galaxy, species that had never given humanity a second thought began to realize that everything had changed. A new power had risen, and it was human. 3 months after the Helian massacre, the human fleet arrived at Voroth Prime. The planet hung in space like a dark jewel, its cities glittering against the night side, its military stations silent and empty. The greatest empire in the galaxy waited to learn its fate. Rear Admiral Kim Yuna recently promoted for her role in the victory, commanded the occupation forces. She stood on the bridge of the Incheon, looking down at the world that had threatened to destroy humanity. It would have been easy to hate them. It would have been easy to order the bombardment and end the Vorith species forever. But that was not why they were here. All ships, hold position, she ordered. Boarding parties, begin landing operations. Remember your training. We are here to occupy, not to massacre. Any soldier who harms a civilian will answer to me personally. The landing craft descended through the atmosphere. General Cho Sang-woo led the first wave, his marines spreading out across the capital city with weapons ready but fingers off triggers. The Vorith civilians watched from their windows, expecting death. Instead, they saw human soldiers establishing aid stations, distributing food, treating the wounded. A young Vorith child, barely old enough to walk, wandered away from her mother and stumbled into a group of Marines. The soldiers immediately knelt down, making themselves small and unthreatening. One of them, a woman named Sergeant Kong Soo-mi, offered the child a piece of candy from her ration pack. The child's mother rushed forward, terrified, grabbing her daughter and pulling her away. She expected punishment. She expected violence. Instead, Sergeant Kong simply smiled and backed away with her hands raised. "It is all right," she said in carefully practiced Vorith. "We are not here to hurt you. We are here to help." The mother stared at her with wide, confused eyes. This was not how conquerors behaved. This was not what the Vorith would have done if they had one dot in the Imperial Palace. The Vorith Emperor formally surrendered to Admiral Park Tae-ho. The ceremony was broadcast across the entire Vorith Empire and beyond. Billions of beings watched as the ancient ruler handed over his ceremonial sword and pledged the submission of his people. Admiral Park accepted the sword with a small bow. When he spoke, his voice was carried to every corner of the galaxy. "Emperor of the Vorith, your empire threatened humanity with extinction. Your fleets came to burn our worlds and enslave our children. For this crime, there must be consequences. Your military is dissolved. Your weapons are destroyed. Your ability to wage war is ended." The emperor lowered his head, waiting for the sentence of death. "But your people are not your military," Admiral Park continued. "Your children are not responsible for the decisions of their leaders. Therefore, we offer you something that your empire never offered to the species you conquered. We offer you mercy. Rebuild your civilization. Care for your people. Join the community of peaceful species. And never forget the lesson you have learned today." The emperor looked up with shock in his ancient eyes. He had expected execution. He had expected his species to be wiped out. Instead, the humans were giving them a chance. "Why?" he whispered. "After everything we threatened, after everything we tried to do, why would you show us mercy?" Admiral Park Tae-ho met his gaze steadily. "Because being human means more than being strong. It means being just. It means being wise. It means knowing when to destroy and when to forgive. We have destroyed your power to hurt us. Now we give you the chance to become something worthy of survival. Use it wisely." The ceremony ended. The Vorith Empire, as a military power, ceased to exist. But the Vorith people survived. And slowly, they began to understand that humanity was something they had never encountered before. A species that could have destroyed them completely, but chose not to. In the following weeks, the true extent of Vorith cruelty became clear. The 32 species they had conquered over the centuries were found in labor camps, in breeding facilities, in conditions that made even hardened soldiers weep. General Cho Sang-woo personally oversaw the liberation of each enslaved population. On the planet Selther 7, a species called the Telki had been enslaved for 200 years. They had been forced to work in mines until they died, then replaced with their own children. When the human Marines opened the camp gates, the Telki did not run. They had forgotten what freedom meant. Lieutenant Han Yunbai was assigned to help with the rehabilitation effort. She sat with the Telki elders, learning their language, understanding their trauma, helping them remember that they were people, not property. "Why do you help us?" one elder asked through tears. "You do not know us. We have nothing to offer you. Why do you care?" Han Yunbai thought for a long moment before answering. Because someone had to. Because it was right. Because this is what humans do. The elder looked at her with wonder. "Are all humans like you?" "No," Han Yunbai admitted honestly. "Some humans are cruel. Some are selfish. Some are weak. But when we are at our best, when we remember what we can be, this is who we are. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We fight for those who cannot fight." The news of the liberations spread across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of the Vorith for centuries suddenly found themselves free. And they looked at humanity with new eyes. Not fear, gratitude, hope. Ambassador Beak J returned to the Galactic Council with a proposal. Earth would form a new alliance, the Terran Protective Coalition, open to any species that wanted to live in peace. Members would receive military protection from human forces. They would have access to human technology and trade. In return, they would agree to peaceful resolution of conflicts and basic standards of civilized behavior. 47 species joined in the first week. By the end of the month, that number had doubled. The galaxy was reorganizing itself around a new center. And that center was humanity. Admiral Park Tayo retired 6 months after the war ended. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for conflict. Now, with the galaxy at peace, he found he no longer knew what to do with himself. He bought a small house by the sea in Bizan, the city where he had been born, and spent his days watching the waves. One afternoon, a young journalist came to interview him. She asked the question that everyone wanted answered. "Admiral, how did you defeat an empire? How did 200 ships destroy 4,000? Admiral Park smiled and poured 2 cups of tea. The steam rose in the afternoon light. "The Vorith studied our technology," he said. "They counted our ships. They measured our weapons, and they concluded that we were weak. But technology and numbers are not what win wars. Will wins wars. Preparation wins wars. The ability to suffer and continue fighting wins wars." He sipped his tea. "Humans have been fighting for 10,000 years. We have learned lessons that younger species cannot imagine. We know how to endure. We know how to sacrifice. We know how to destroy. The Vorith should have studied our history before they threatened our homes." The journalist nodded, writing furiously. "And what about the future? What does humanity do now?" Admiral Park looked out at the sea, at the waves that had been rolling against this shore since long before humans existed. "We do what we have always done. We build, we explore, we learn, we grow, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves. The galaxy watched us and expected us to fall. Instead, they watched us rise. Now they know what humanity truly is. And perhaps, in time, they will become better because of that knowledge." Far above Earth, Pilot Officer Lee Hanna was reassigned to patrol duty along the borders of the new Terran space. One day, her squadron encountered a damaged civilian ship from a species that had just joined the coalition. The ship was filled with refugees, families fleeing from pirates who had been terrorizing the sector. Lee Hanna escorted the refugees to safety personally. As they disembarked at a human station, a young alien child approached her. It was the same child from the Vorith labor camp on Sulfur 7, now free and healthy and curious. "Are you a soldier?" the child asked. Lee Hanna knelt down to meet the child's eyes. "Yes, I am. Why do you fight? Lee Hanna remembered the Helian corridor. She remembered the fire and the death and the victory. She remembered the liberation of the labor camps and the tears of the freed slaves. She remembered everything that had brought them to this moment. Because someone had to, she said simply. Because there are bad things in the galaxy that hurt good people, and someone needs to stop them. So we do. The child thought about this for a moment. Then she smiled and hugged the human soldier before running. Back to her family, Lee Hanna watched her go and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Peace. The galaxy had watched humanity and expected them to be destroyed. Instead, they had witnessed the birth of something new, something fierce and merciful, something ancient and young, something that would never be underestimated again. And in homes and ships and stations across human space, children grew up hearing stories of the war. They learned about Admiral Park Tae-ho and his brilliant trap. They learned about Captain Kim Yuna and her courage under fire. They learned about all the soldiers who had fought and died so that humanity could survive. And they learned the most important lesson of all, that being human meant being strong enough to destroy your enemies. But it also meant being wise enough to know when to show mercy. That was the human way. And now the galaxy knew it too.